On the first warm evening of the spring, when there was water in the rainwater pool, the Fowlers Toads came out to play. As the evening got later, the chorus got louder. And some of the toads were even visible in flashlight. The next evening, more of the same. On the third night, the rainwater pool was mostly dry, so the action all switched to Ridgeside Lake, and it was louder than ever. This is a pretty good picture of a toad calling. Watch. My best estimate is that there were at least 40 males calling each of the nights at Ridgeside Lake. The rainwater pool stayed dry for quite a while in the early spring. It filled up later. So these tadpoles are Fowler's Toad tadpoles in Ridgeside Lake. Each toad lays hundreds of eggs in an evening. They will come back day after day if the weather and water is cooperating, and eventually you get it looking like this, where there's hundreds of little tadpoles feeding ferociously. This is pretty typical of what the tadpoles look like after a couple of weeks. They spend all of their time feeding, scraping algae and bacteria off of leaves and other substrates, and the rest of the time resting. Fowler's toads breed usually in the dark, and it has to be 60 degrees or warmer in the evening for them to do it. So I was totally shocked when on this day I found 4 pairs of toads all breeding in the daytime. If you look underneath them pretty carefully, you will also see lots and lots of little tadpoles swimming around in the water. So it is so weird for them to be, the tadpoles to be swimming around while the toads are in the water breeding. Because they're in the water and it's nighttime, you rarely actually get to see them as they actually do this work. But it was kind of weird to see them in the bright sunshine, and I tried to take full advantage. These guys are underwater, and then they'll eventually come back up for air. I would be surprised if you didn't occasionally get a drowned toad because of these situations. I think the toads are sexually dimorphic, and the males are on top. So the females seem to be bigger. I'm not sure why, but could be because they need all that energy to produce the eggs. Because the toads breed on many different evenings or even daytimes, you eventually get a situation where you have lots of different sized tadpoles in the water because the younger ones are smaller. And it just goes like that all season. This picture shows really how much bigger the older ones are than the younger ones. And as they start to turn gray and mottled, that shows that they're even getting closer to turning into toads. Breeding season started in early May, so right on schedule, 6 or 7 weeks later, you've got some of the tadpoles turning to little toadlets. The toadlets are small, they're fast, they're cryptic, so taking pictures of them is exceedingly difficult, but I give it my best effort as much as I can. You got 2 brand new toads, and then eventually an ant walks by, and you can see they're not much different than the ants. More pictures of the toadlets, cryptic colored, blending in with the background, fast, elusive, and irregular. Makes for a very tough combination when you're trying to film. This video is in chronological order, but that doesn't really show you the development of the toads in chronological order. So what you've got is you've already got little toadlets out on the ground, but in the water you're starting to see tadpoles that have legs. Big legs there, and in fact some of them may even have 4 legs. And when a tadpole gets 4 legs, you can be sure that in the next 2 or 3 days it will become a toadlet. On the same day that you just saw those toads with legs, you've got some here that are younger with no legs, and they are demonstrating very typical Fowler's toad feeding behavior, where they scrape bacteria and algae off of vegetation. A little sidelight is that toads, of course, shrink their tails to nothing when they become toads, and that's because they have the intestine is in the tail until they turn to toads, and then they don't need it because eating insects doesn't take nearly the long gut that eating vegetation does. Same day, more tadpoles, and again in different stages. Some of these have very small legs, some of them don't seem to have much of a leg at all. It's been interesting over the years. I've really learned how to tell what the legs are doing and the aging of the tadpoles, and this is just another picture of it. The first breeding cycle at the rainwater pool was a failure because it went dry, but then with the rainy summer they must have kept trying, and here we are at the end of July, rather late in the season, with some very good little toadlets. Sometimes the vegetation is so thick that the only way you can get a picture of the toadlet is to just pick them up in your hand. The rain had coated so much of the area around the rainwater pool with a coating of mud. And, you know, while the toadlets are pretty cryptic, at least you had some open areas that occasionally you could see them on. I usually don't zoom in much when they're on the ground because once they jump, you lose them. But the longer this one sat, the more I felt like I could zoom in further. So you got some pretty decent pictures of a toadlet on the ground. The next day, there was a place near the rainwater pool where the toadlets were heading away from the pond now that they've turned into toads. And I got some decent pictures. July 25th, the last day that I saw little toadlets near the rainwater pool or anywhere else. The season of breeding had come to an end. Not bad to go from May 5th and 6th all the way to the end of July with a continuous and steady stream of tadpoles and toadlets spicing up life in the North Burial Ground.